along with my co-host, John Kessler. Episode 47 features the offensive coordinator at Carleton College, Brett Bartolone. Coach discusses his journey in coaching from serving under Mike Leach to now being the offensive coordinator at Carleton. Coach also details his experience in the air raid and installs key air raid staples such as mesh, while also sharing his favorite quick game and red zone concepts. He also shares how to structure your practices to fit the air raid scheme. How about fitting the air raid to Carleton? When you're going through that process of trying to figure out, bringing your offensive philosophy with you, what about Carleton and air raid do you think was such a great fit with one another?
Yeah, well, first of all, you got to have a system. You got to have an identity. That goes for whatever system it is. It don't matter. You could be triple option. You could be air raid, whatever. You got to have a system. But it's also got to be an easy system to learn. Like I touched on before, like our guys, they do enough thinking on the hill. You know what I mean? Like they're tested academically and it's rigorous here. So the last thing that we want our guys doing when they come down to practice is be thinking a lot. You know what I mean? We want a system that's going to be easy to learn. Like our guys should learn this system in 3 or 4 days. We just want our guys to come down for practice and just have fun. Let football be an escape for them. But two, like the air raid, we want teams to prepare for something different when they play us. You know what I mean? Like we've been doing our stuff since day one of camp, and we still haven't changed. We're still running the same stuff. And, now our opponent, who's seen something different all year, they only have 4 or 5 practices, maybe even less, to prepare for our stuff. And, that defensive coordinator, he's probably going to know what we're doing. You know what I mean? He's going to have me figured out. Like that's going to happen, but I don't really care. I don't really care because he's still got to get his guys to figure it out. And they got to react to a situation where, our receivers and running backs, our guys are running around full speed and completely confident with what they're doing. So, you're going to have an idea of what we're doing. We're not going to change, but we're still going out and execute you. So that to me, that's why I think the air raid is a great fit for what we're doing here, just because it's so different.
And when you look at the air raid offense and you look at kind of the passing game, one of the staples is 92, which is the mesh.
This is what I said from the beginning of the season when I heard Jason Phillips got the job. I was like, yo, if you're going to run the air raid system, the best part of the air raid system is the mesh, right? Mesh. What is mesh? Okay, mesh is when you take either your slot receivers or your outside receivers, but mostly you take your 2 slot receivers, right? And they bold. They cross in the middle. It's called mesh routes, right? So when you're running,
when you look at 92 and running mesh, how do you teach your wide receivers to mesh properly and then also identify zone and man?
Well, I mean, pre-snap, just based off man eyes or zone eyes. We tell our receivers to kind of have an idea, but like something we tell these guys too, like as they're running across, like you got the idea if it's zone or man, but you look at your buddy coming across from you running full speed that you're meshing with, and if he's got a guy running with him, behind him, then you probably do too. And you're going to keep running. You're going to stay on the move. You know what I mean? Because it's probably man. If your buddy don't have anybody running behind you, and as soon as you clear that mesh point, you got a window, then you're going to sit and you're going to do it decisively. So, I mean, that's just one thing that we a coaching point that we tell our guys as far as identifying man or zone. And we do mesh with all our different receivers out of a bunch of different formations, and there's variations of it. You create high lows with it and motion. It's pretty chaotic, but it's a great concept to do, but you got to practice it,
What do you teach your quarterbacks then with that progression?
Well, when you're running mesh, you got to think of the mesh as your check. The mesh is a check down because it's a short intermediate route or concept, but it takes a while to develop. And we always want the defense to think that we're going to throw it behind our heads. And you could put whatever concept you want with the mesh. Like our base mesh play, which is just a staple. All air raid teams do it. It's just a 2x2 formation. The outside guys are running those 8 to 10 yard speed outs, and it's just a mesh on the inside. So for mesh, it's either outside in just based off pre-snap leverage. Like, hey, we're going to take this lookie, and if the corner takes it away from us, then we're going to check it down to the mesh or to the back. So you're either going outside in to the mesh or you're going high, low to the mesh. You know, you could do a post wheel concept at a 3x1 and then get down to your mesh. You could add motion to that. You could do a double wheel concept with a back three releasing out of the backfield with the post, the wheel, and then you got another wheel on the other side, then checking down to the mesh. So I think, yeah, it's unbelievable. I could go on and on, and the timing's got to all work out. Like, hey, we're looking down the field, and then by the time those receivers are setting up shop and settling right in front of you, the timing's perfectly where you're going to place that ball away from the most dangerous defender. He's going to tuck, turn, and get straight up field and split defenders with that. We also have a mesh flood concept. Like, I call it a flood concept because you're flooding the field. Flood to us conceptually means, hey, we're putting a guy in the post, we're putting a guy in the wheel, we're putting another guy in the flat that same side, and then we got a mesh going on. And you could get to that at empty, you could get to that at a 3x1, but yeah, you're reading high to low. You're going post, wheel, flat, back down to the mesh. So there's a lot. And you could create high lows with it, you know. Like at a 3x1, you could mesh, and then you could put a dig. At a number 2, you put a dig at a number 1. And that's another great thing about the mesh is those high-low plays as well.
Coach, in terms of your quick game, what have been your most productive concepts, and what coaching tips would you give for making these quick game concepts so productive?
The one that we were probably best at last year was out of our 3x1, and it's basically a version of like the Air Raid's version of 8 at a 3x1, where you're getting a corner and a slant from the outside guy, you know. So like for us, we'd line up in a 3x1, and you know, number 1 of the field, he's running a slant. Number 2's running a slant. We're looking to throw number 2 the ball right now if we have leverage. And if we don't have leverage, then we might have leverage on the outside. And if not, then we're checking it down to the back. But we'd have number 3 he'd just run across and work that other hash just to hold that mic in there. But Washington State and a lot of air raid teams, like that's 8 for them, and they'll do the same thing to the field, except they'll put number 3 on a corner. And that kind of gives you a man beater. But we did that really well last year. We threw the ball number 2 a lot, just because coverage-wise, we had leverage right now to do it, and the quarterback had a lot of confidence in just catching that thing and letting it rip. So that worked out good for us. We have wide stick, you know, where you're 2x2, you're shooting the back out of the backfield, and you know, Y's running that stick or that option route, and you're kind of manipulating that alley defender to the field, and you know, you could do that to both sides. Something that we need to get better at is taking leverage on our backside slants. With all of our quick game, we got backside slants attached to it, and what it really turns out to be is a spacing concept, because those guys, they could sit, they could settle, and we tell our guys, like, it don't matter what coverage the defense has. Like, we could throw those backside slants and we could get the back out there, and we should be able to beat and out execute anyone with that concept right there. So we need to do a better job of throwing that and practicing it. But that's really what it comes down to. Like if you're going to be productive with these concepts, practice them, and you got to throw routes on air, and you have to have the running back involved on routes on air. But the biggest thing to look at from the quick game perspective, like when it comes to us, when we're looking at teams and we're looking at coverage, is just leverage. Is leverage and just count. Like, hey, count the defenders. If there's more defenders over here, we should be going to our backside slants. If there's more defenders over there, then hey, let's work the field. It's based off space. It's based off numbers.
Hey, yo, Scotty, you going crazy for this one. We see what you're doing. We salute you. Hey, let's get it started. It's backpack, capital 1. What's in your wallet? Got a call from my man, A. Scott. I said I got it. Look.